Hi again, everyone, and welcome to the online study of the book of Ruth. I hope you've been enjoying the study so far. It has been a wonderful opportunity to go through one of the great books of the Bible, the great short books of the Bible, but an Old Testament picture of the redemption that was going to come through Jesus. And I figured just to start off this section, chapter 3, it was important just to go back and look at what the expectation of Ruth and Naomi were as we enter into chapter 3. Because it's a picture of falling short a bit in the Christian life. In chapter 3, after the encounter between Ruth and Boaz, there's a question that is asked when Ruth returns. Naomi asks the question, "Is that you, my daughter?" And it's somewhat of a strange question in context, unless you really look at what she's asking. She has returned from an encounter, a really important encounter with Boaz, the picture of Jesus. And the encounter was set out with a purpose, where Ruth is going to submit herself entirely, humble herself before Boaz, and ask Boaz to redeem her. It goes well. He's a picture of Jesus, so he is willing to redeem in love. But it speaks to the possibility of us and Ruth and Naomi not going far enough in our walk with Christ. Follow me in this. First chapter, Elimelech and family leave the promised land. They sin, they make a mistake, and they go out of the will of God. They should have stayed and trusted God. We saw that through Boaz. He stays in the promised land the entire time. They are gone in Moab, the land of compromise. And by the time they get back, he's in the position that he's wealthy. God has shown his face on him, so that he's there ready to redeem them. That could have been Elimelech. That could have been Naomi. That could have been Mahlon and Chilion, had they been faithful. We see all throughout the Bible that particularly comes to mind Peter. His name gets changed from Simon, Little Rock, Big Rock, from the little play on words with Jesus. Their names are changed to suit what Jesus has done in them. Mahlon and Chilion, wasting and pining and sickness, could have been changed through interaction with the Lord. But regardless, they're lost in Moab for a season, like the prodigal son, the younger son, in the parable of the prodigal son. And they experience the world. The world is hard. The world is filled with sickness and death, and causes bitterness. Like Naomi comes back, she's Mara, she's filled with bitterness. But God sends messengers. We don't know exactly how he did it, but they find out there's bread. The famine is over. Things are good in the promised land, and they come back with a terrible attitude, but they're still welcome back. If you have gone far from God, if you feel like you are filled with bitterness, if you're experiencing life and the pain of it, but there's even that sliver of faith left, turn back around, come back to the promised land and the Lord, and experience his goodness, and you won't regret it. They come back, and Naomi it appears that Naomi tutors Ruth. She explains that through the law, there's these provisions for providing for people who are in desperate straits. And she sends her off to glean in the fields. We saw in the last section how it's a picture of Jesus treating his lost sheep, essentially, treating people who come to him, even people who don't understand him, with kindness and goodness. He provides more than Ruth's expectations. And remember, he tells his workers to deliberately allow grain to fall in the field. He tells his workers to watch out for Ruth. He tells Ruth to stay with his women to provide protection for her. And then he invites her to his table where they eat essentially bread and sour wine, vinegar, it's called in the Bible, but it would have been a wine product. An early picture of what's going to come through Jesus. The thing is, though, it's very easy to stop there. Ruth is still not part of Boaz's family here. Naomi is not part of Boaz's family here, his immediate family, extended family, sure. They haven't been totally redeemed yet. It's so easy when the immediate panic is over. They are getting food. They're getting remember, Ruth brings back the scraps from the table. She holds something back to provide for Naomi. So their bellies are getting filled. There's protection. There is ease somewhat. The immediate crisis is over. It's so easy then to stop there. But that is not what Jesus wants for us. That's not what Boaz wants for Ruth. He wants more. Jesus wants more from us. And it takes Naomi and Ruth being insistent, going forward in total submission and total humility to get to the point of love, to get to the point of marriage, to get to the point that God set out for them, the full redemption. For us, that it can look like we're attending church. We are reading the Bible. We are Christian, but we haven't completely dove headfirst into the life of Christ. We're experiencing the goodness. Even first, it can be those among us and those of you who are out there who are experiencing the goodness of being in church but haven't made a decision for Christ yet, who haven't totally given their lives over to Christ. That's the first layer. The second one is those who are keeping Christ kind of at arm's length, where they're experiencing goodness. It's good enough. It's enjoyable. They love Jesus, but they're not totally married as the church is meant to be to our Savior Christ. Everything and nothing less given to Him. That requires total submission, which we'll see through the chapter. So when you're reading chapter 3 in particular, think about the lengths that they go, Naomi and Ruth, to secure their future, to become wed with Boaz. Yes, salvation is a free gift from Christ. And yes, we don't add anything to it, but we first must come and totally submit to the Lord and seek out Him. And then, as we go forward, sanctification requires our cooperation, our constant striving forward. And Paul talked about running the race and training to run the race. Are we running that race persistently? Are we training like the athletes train today to win, so that we're not ashamed, so that we stand before Jesus and we hear not only well done, good and faithful servant, but then the crowns come for the work that we've done for Him. So that is the introduction. Stay tuned. We'll post a further study shortly as we go line by line through the section.